Welcome. I'm super excited you're here with me today. In this video, we're going to talk about failure. And specifically, if you're someone who struggles with failure and you want to know how you can bounce back and be even better than you were before, like I did, this video is especially for you. By the end of this video, you will have the exact 3 steps I move through after every failure, disappointment, tragedy, and you will know how you can implement those so that you can bounce back and continue to create a life you love. I'm going to start by sharing some of the failures I've been through, and there have been a variety. And then after that, I'm going to give you the steps that I use. I believe that if you practice those steps, you will be able to move through to the next step and into a new direction even faster than I was able to, because I didn't have anybody really leading me through that. I was just researching, trying different strategies, reading books, doing everything I could to try to transform my life into something better and to try to keep going after these situations. But I'm here to walk with you through it. So let's get started. Okay, so first I want to just tell you about a few of the different types of failures that I've had in my life. They include things like being pushed out of a job unfairly. They include having cycles of toxic relationships, divorce. And then when I did finally meet a man and get married and was living a life that I truly love, he suddenly died in his 40s and I was not prepared financially. So that was a financial setback. And then maybe a little bit of a lighter example is a story about me, someone who knows absolutely nothing about sports, coaching a soccer team that never scored a single goal. So, like I said, every single time I went through the hard parts and I was able to move forward and continue to get better, not even just move sideways, but forward and up and better and improve into a better and brighter and happier life. So let's talk about some of the examples. The first one was when I got pushed out of a job. It was back in 2013. I was working with someone at a large corporation where we had a contract to teach personal development classes. And if I told you the name of this corporation, every single person would know this corporation. But I was working by contract, and this contract was basically handed to me. I was teaching things like gardening and stress relief. We had some fitness classes, and it was really going extremely well. I was the new kid on the block, and pretty much every other instructor was there teaching some type of technical type classes, computer type classes, things like that. And so our classes that were around wellness got extremely popular, to the point that one day I'm sitting there teaching this class and I noticed that my students who were employees of this corporation, they would come during their lunch times. And so a lot of times these would be lunch and learns, but they came in and they were getting up in the middle of the class and running next door and then coming back and running next door and coming back. And it was a lot of movement where usually I had their full attention. So it was a really odd situation, to the point that I asked, hey, what's going on? And they told me there was another class next door and it was the same thing I was teaching, basically. So what happened was our classes got really popular. Other vendors started teaching exactly what I was teaching right next door to me at the same time. And I was shocked, first of all, because I couldn't believe that something like that was happening. It was all very strange. and unexpected. But also those vendors had been there a lot longer than I was. And you know what? I decided not to fight that battle. I felt like it was a very unfair situation. Really, it was a dirty situation, but I didn't feel led to fight that battle and I didn't renew my contract there. And I left and I had peace about that. What was hard about that situation was the fact that I was doing very well. It was successful. It was something I enjoyed doing. My students were enjoying it. I could see that growing into something larger than what it started out being. The fact that I was pushed out unfairly was also hard. But you know what? This story has a surprise ending that I couldn't see in the beginning. And so as I left, I really didn't have a plan B. I ended up not renewing my contract and I said, let me just go and do some substitute teaching at the time. So in a little while, I'm going to come back and tell you the surprise ending of that story. Let me give you another example that's a little bit heavier. And in this example, it's more of a string of failures followed by tragedy. So I kind of alluded to it earlier where I was in a string of toxic relationships in my life. You may have heard me say in other videos, but I didn't know what healthy looked like as far as relationships. I didn't know how to choose healthy relationships. I really didn't know what I was looking for when I was dating. I was someone who didn't have any close friends, really any close family, had moved around a lot, and I was just attaching to people that were not right for me. So I ended up in a lot of toxic situations. So that was a string of failures. And then divorce. Of course, I ended up divorced as a byproduct of that. When I did finally meet someone that was wonderful and amazing, we were living a wonderful life. I was enjoying life, but he suddenly died. And just a few years in, and we were not financially prepared. So I was not able to hold on to the house. I was not able to hold on to my car. And that was just really a string of failures. It was a huge disappointment. It was a tragedy, even more than just the loss of a spouse. The things that added to it made it even that much harder. And as someone who was already a business owner, somebody who was a college graduate with honors and just going through this situation just felt like an enormous failure. Of course, it wasn't my fault that I lost my spouse, but all of the things that came after that felt like a huge failure in some way for me. So you can imagine that that was very hard. And then I want to give you one more much lighter example, and that is my soccer example. If you know me, you know that I do not know anything about sports. Nothing. I am not someone who you would imagine was out coaching a soccer team, but I was working for the school and they were sending out requests. The emails kept coming requesting a soccer coach for the girls team. They had a coach for the boys team, but they didn't have one for the girls team. And the time was coming for the season to start. Still no coach. So I offered to assist if they could find a coach. I had no problem helping out, but I let them know I don't know anything about soccer. Okay. But I don't mind being there for the girls and helping out and, doing what I can so that they can get to play. Well, the time came for the season to start. And since they had no coach, they asked if I would be willing to coach, to be the head coach alongside the boys coach. And basically the boys coach would do all the coaching and I would just help with whatever the girls needed and be in the locker room and that type of thing. Well, that all sounds great in theory, But the boys' coach quickly, I want to say probably after the first couple practices, lost interest in the girls and never really put any effort into coaching the girls. And understandable, the girls were inexperienced. They were not really serious. The boys, however, were very good. And he put, all of his time and energy into them. And so I was out there day after day trying to figure out what to do and trying to mimic what they were doing and just be that person that could at least let the girls have a team and get a chance to play. But again, they were very inexperienced. I had no experience. So that was a complete disaster. Those girls never scored a single goal. In fact, there was one time where our team finally got the ball into the goal, and our team just started shouting and cheering and celebrating until we realized that one team member had been offsides, so it didn't count. And that was the first time I learned about being offsides. That's how bad I was. What was hard about that was that is a public failure. If you are coaching a team, there are people watching. Literally, that's the definition of sports. There are people out there watching us play, watching us practice, watching me coach, not knowing what I was doing. So it was a very public thing to have happen. And then also I continued working for that school after failing as a soccer coach. And so to go back and keep it light and not let my ego get in the way, not feel like I had to explain anything, but just go back and I did. I did a lot of great things at that school, participated in some wonderful things, learned a lot, taught a lot. That was a situation that was a complete and public failure. So that's literally just the tip of the iceberg. There are many different things that have been failures in my life. You're probably wondering, how in the world have I created a life I truly love? And how am I light and joyful? And what do I do to get that way after failures, disappointments, and even tragedy? So this is the part where I want to encourage you to pause the video and go and get a notebook. If you're serious about transforming your life, you want to write these things down. You want to write down the steps. And even more importantly than that, write down the new ideas and revelations and understandings that come to you regarding your situations. So go ahead and pause the video, go and get a notebook, and we'll get started. Okay, ready? So, step one, the first thing I always do when I have a loss, a disappointment, and when I have had tragedy is to grieve the loss, but ditch the blame. It does not do any good to hold on to blame, to hold on to resentment. It does absolutely no good to dwell in self-pity. Yes, grieve the loss. Acknowledge the loss. Acknowledge the unfairness, the sadness, the disappointment. Do acknowledge those things. And even if there are steps that you need to take to rectify your situation or to get safe or to get your money back, do that without holding on to the emotions of blame, anger, and self-pity or any other negative emotions as much as possible. This will allow you to move into a place where you can move forward. When you're dwelling in those negative emotions, and I mean, even if they're justified, even if you are dwelling in self-pity and everyone around you can understand why and might even be dwelling in that self-pity or that pity with you, even when it's perfectly reasonable for you to be angry, for you to feel like something was unjust, even when another person would be able to definitely understand why it would be hard to forgive. Don't dwell in those emotions and don't hold on to those emotions. See if you can move your emotions up to a place where you're dealing with the situation from a neutral place emotionally. So let me show you what I mean. I have a pyramid of emotions, and these have different energies that go with them. So, for example, when you're dwelling in these lower emotions, this is when things are not going right for you. This is when disease forms in your body. This is when negative cycles of thinking start happening and the situation gets even more out of control. When you're down here dwelling in things like fear, shame, anger, pride, unforgiveness, you are not going to be able to move forward because you're stuck in negativity. And the things around you are going to reflect that. And so what you want to do is start moving up. So this is a scientifically researched pyramid of the energy of different emotions, where you can see that even the energy of fear is a little bit higher than the energy of shame. Then the energy of pride is a little bit higher than fear. And there are other emotions that are built into this. If you can move up to just being neutral, you have made a significant jump and you have moved into a place where positive things can start opening up for you and start happening because you are not carrying around negative energy in your body and into everything that you do in every situation and person that you meet. So, and then if you can move even further up to just willingness to grow, willingness to let go of a few things, willingness to choose your battles wisely. And once you can get even up higher into love and joy, this is the place where miracles start happening for me. Literally. I'm going to do a video about that. Literal miracles start happening right here when I can find a way to dwell as much as possible. It's never going to be perfect because we're humans with emotions, but when I can start to dwell in joy and love, and I do that, I want to say probably 98% of the time now. So many miracles happen in my life right now. It's amazing. And this is where the life I truly love exists. I want to encourage you to grieve, but clear out those negative emotions. So if you have that notebook, these are the questions I want you to answer. What is one loss that you still need to grieve? And secondly, what negative emotions tied to the situation do you still need to let go of? If you need to pause the video, go ahead and do that, but take a moment to write those down and answer those questions either now or after the video. So let's go into step 2. Step 2 is where we start to move forward. We have grieved our loss. We have dealt with our negative emotions, or we're in the process of dealing with them. And so from a place of peace, meaning you are generally calm, you've moved into, if not those higher level emotions, you've at least moved into being neutral and even willingness to grow. And from that place, you're going to start to look for your next step. But the thing about looking for your next step is that it's really feeling for your next step. It's not something that you're forcing. You're still here. You're still on this earth after the failure, after the disappointment, after the tragedy. There is still something good for you. And so you're going to feel around for what that next step is going to be while you are doing your self-care. You're going to be practicing positive affirmations over yourself, over your situation. And while you're doing that, feel around for the next move that feels right. It should feel good. It should feel right. It should feel purposeful. It should feel productive. It should feel like you are not forcing it. So it should be something that you put effort into, but you are not forcing, kicking, scratching, stepping on top of other people, tearing folks down, pushing through walls. You're not doing that to get to that next place that's right for you. For example, and I told you I was going to tell you the surprise ending to getting pushed out of a job. When I got pushed out of that job, I went and I started substitute teaching. And I took a long-term teaching position at a local public school. And that's where I was when my husband passed unexpectedly. And that school offered me a teaching job. In fact, they offered me one of two teaching jobs and asked me which one I wanted. And so that's how I ended up in the public school system teaching. But that's also how I ended up working in trauma coaching, in restorative practices. I was able to take advantage of a program that was teaching people in the community, including teachers, how to run small groups to help people with different types of stress and trauma after negative situations. So that really started to form who I am today. And I was already there. And if I had been somewhere else when my husband passed, I may not have gone down that path. So from a place of allowing myself to leave that unfair situation and be guided into teaching a whole new life that I truly love opened up for me. And that wouldn't have happened if I just went into battle mode at that time. I don't believe that I would have been open to those specific next steps. I would have been full of bitterness. I would have been battling. I would have been writing my letters. And I'm not saying don't write a letter, don't address situations. But for me, letting that situation go opened up a wonderful world after the fact of my husband passing. Okay. So if you're taking notes, again, I want you to write down. First, we've got to get into that neutral place, right? And we need to get some statements that we're speaking over our situation on repeat. So I want you to write down 3 positive statements that you can speak over yourself and over your situation on repeat. And if you need some time to think, again, go ahead and pause the video or just write down the question and come back to it afterwards. And then secondly, what is a negative statement that you have running through your mind that you need to get rid of? Okay. So I want you to have at least 3 affirmations you're speaking over yourself and over your situation. And what is a negative statement that you're going to be committed to removing so that you can move forward and from that place of peace, find your right next step. Okay, so let's get into the last step. Last step is step 3, which is to learn to embrace failure. So some of us feel like failure in a situation or something that we wanted is the end of the world as we know it. And it is not. I'm here to tell you that life goes on. You might be moving into a life without something important to you, without someone that was important to you. But if you will embrace failure, you will be able to move into something that is also wonderful. Not even that your old life was bad, In some cases it is. In some cases, it just wasn't the right life for you. But you will be able to move into something wonderful if you do these things. One, when you embrace failure, you're going to document and write down new knowledge that you gain after every disappointment, after every failure, after even tragedy. What is some new knowledge you gain about yourself? And I'm talking about something positive that you can use to move forward. What is a new direction that's coming to you when you get into a place where you're quietly listening to that inner voice? What is a new direction or a new adjustment that's opening up to you? Go ahead and embrace that. These are steps that help you to move up and not just sit lounging in whatever the failed situation was. And then you're going to take time to learn out of each situation, what can you control? And you're going to acknowledge the things you can't control. Okay. In each of those situations, there were some things that I couldn't control. I did the best I could every single time. But there are going to be times where the best that you could might not be good. But when you gain new information and you make better choices, you're going to do better. And that's fine. That's part of life. Okay. Learn what you can control. And then lastly, how can you take that first baby step into a better situation? Okay. So step 3, notes. Question 1, what's stopping you from embracing failure as a learning mechanism? What is stopping you from embracing failure as a learning mechanism? 2, what new knowledge have you gained from a recent failure or disappointment? And then 3, how can you use that information to move forward in a positive direction? Okay. I have these written on note cards because I didn't want to forget them, but these are literally the things I do every single time. This is how you're going to create a life that you love. This is how you're going to get unstuck. This is how you're going to break cycles. This is how your life is going to get better and you're going to have something that you can enjoy. Okay, so which of these steps resonates with you the most? Let me know in the comments. I would love to hear about it. I hope you have a great day and I'll see you in the next video.